Welcome to She Wears the Pants, the podcast where women build companies that can hold their calling. I'm your host, Ashley Deland, business advisor, multi-business founder, and startup investor, guiding women to scale with structure, strategy, and self-mastery. Every week, we go behind the scenes of high-growth, women-led brands to talk about the real work, the identity evolution, the leadership required, and the strategy that actually sustains success. If you're ready to build a business and life you love, you're in the right room. Today, I am so thrilled to welcome Carrie Colbert to She Wears the Pants. With over 25 years of business experience, Carrie is a game-changing force in venture capital. As the founder of Curate Capital, a firm that invests in women-led brands across industries like health and beauty and fashion, she's on a mission to revolutionize the investment landscape. Carrie has over 100,000 followers and uses her influence, more importantly, to empower women entrepreneurs, having raised over $15 million for her first fund. She's been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, and TechCrunch, and she's here to share her journey on blending business salve with creativity. Carrie, welcome to She Wears the Pants. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ashley. It's an honor to be here.
Oh my goodness, Carrie. The moment I met you, we all had the same anthem of this gigantic girl crush when you meet Carrie Colbert.
Oh gosh, it's kind.
Are such, when I say like a game-changing force for the venture capital world, you truly are. And on top of that, what really attracted me to you was that you are such an advocate for women. So why don't you tell me a bit about your background and how you got started in just the entrepreneurial world?
Sure. I won't bore you with too many personal background details, but some of it's relevant, right? Like I grew up in a small town, pretty rough upbringing, if I am being frank. And I was the first in my family to go to college. And so all those early decisions were just very practical and pragmatic in nature. So I knew that education and financial success would be key to kind of rising above my circumstances. And so I got the most scholarships in petroleum engineering at the University of Texas. And so that's what I studied. And I graduated at the top of my class. And then the best jobs were in Houston in the energy industry. So I worked in that industry for almost 25 years. I got my MBA along the way. But really the turning point for me was that even though I wasn't passionate about the industry, I worked for a company that was very entrepreneurial in the way that it functioned and was structured and ran. And so I had the privilege of working directly for a gentleman who's now a billionaire. And when I started, the company was under 100 million in value. And over my a dozen or so years there, we scaled to billions in value. And so that was so instrumental in me in seeing the power of entrepreneurship, right? The power of ownership, the power of charting your own course. And so that financial structure gave me the flexibility to ultimately walk away and figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And, that was really unheard of because as you can imagine, it gets kind of a lucrative being there. There's salaries, bonuses, ownership checks, all these things coming all the time. And it's not as if I was leaving for a better offer, going to work for a competitor or anything. I just said, I want to bet on myself. I want to try something different. And I didn't even know what that different thing was going to be at the beginning. So at about the same time, so while I was ending that career is kind of when social media emerged. And I was fortunate to happened to be on Instagram the week it launched. That's why I have a very short username at Carrie C. And back before there were algorithms and you could just post pretty pictures and grow a decent sized following, that's when I thrived, right? I'm not good in the days of video and algorithms. But what happened was I built a decent sized, very loyal following. And I think I never really tried to make a quick buck off of people, but rather, really developed relationships and community within that group. And so some of those women have been with me 10, 15, even 20 years before social media. And so what happened is that I kind of stumbled into being a little small-time influencer. And so I started connecting with brands. And so I was looking to kind of reinvest the money I had made in one industry in another. And so I just very naively would ask people, hey, are you looking for investors or board members or advisors? no clue what I was doing, but thankfully I learned on my own dime and started angel investing. And so I spent 5 years doing that, and really some incredible things happened, right? I'll say, first of all, I was having great fun, and fun is not a word I would have used to describe my previous career. Two, I was seeing great results. I saw that with the infusion of capital and some mentorship, advising, and so on and so forth, we were able to really help scale these companies. And then third, I saw the great opportunity set. What I mean by that is I saw there wasn't just a handful of companies to invest in, but there were hundreds or thousands of incredible women building incredible companies, right? And so the stats are pretty abysmal for women in the, kind of VC landscape. So even last year, the stat went down to the lowest I've seen it. The stat is that less than 2%, but the number is actually 1.8% of VC funding in the United States goes to women. Well, we could sit here and say that's horrible, and it is. But what I found, there are equally impressive stats on the other side of that coin. And what I mean by that is that women are really over delivering. Women know what they want for themselves, their families, their homes, and they're building those solutions, those products, those services, the technology that women want. And the studies all show that women are over delivering, whether it's revenue or returns or whatever metric you want to look at, women are doing an incredible job of building these businesses. So I looked at that and said, well, wait, women are underfunded, but over delivering. Well, heck, that just makes good business sense to invest in women. And, certainly, you can make the case of doing good and social impact, and all that's great. But I'm a firm capitalist, and I think that if we just make more money, then people can do with that money the good they want to do in the world. And so, frankly, it just makes good business sense to invest in women. And so that's when I kind of took my next naive step and bet on myself again and said, let's start a venture capital fund so we can do more of this and do it at scale. And so that was back in 2020-ish when I started Curate Capital. We raised and closed our first fund in 22, about $15 million that's been invested in 16 companies. And then we're raising our second fund currently with a very lofty target, so that we can do more of the same. I mean, I think that's what inspires me and motivates me daily, is seeing the businesses that women are building. We're getting to look at and invest in what I consider to be some of the best businesses being built in the country these days. And it's just really inspiring.
And how about we announce that beautiful, lofty goal?
Yes, we are raising $100 million to invest in women. It makes me nervous to say it. We started out at 50, but we've had so much interest and so much excitement. I do believe we're going to upsize that to $100 million. And, what's really scary to say a number like that, is it sounds daunting, but what is reassuring to me is our thesis is working. With Fund One, we kind of dipped our toe in the water, so to speak, with this concept we pioneered of influential investing. And so what that means is influencers who are making so much money now and have an appetite for becoming owners in brands, but they don't necessarily want to, evaluate whether an investment is good or bad, or learn how to do due diligence or the legal aspects and, all those details. So influencers are investing their money with us, and then we put those dollars to work. We do all the stuff on the back end to find the best investments. And then those same influencers can use their skills to help grow their investments, to grow the brands that we invest in. And so it really is a win-win-win scenario that benefits not just the influencers, not just the portfolio companies that we invest in, but all of our other investors. So it's a really exciting time to be a part of this. And so for Fund Two specifically, our focus, our thesis, if you will, is investing in extraordinary women who are building the products, services, and technology that she wishes existed for herself, her family, her home, and her life. And, the stats show that women control over 85% of household spending. So women are making those purchasing decisions. And so on the other side, we fully believe that they're creating what they want to buy. So it's really an exciting time to be investing in the consumer space. While some traditional VCs have kind of, deemed that maybe not cool enough, we still think there's a lot of incredible opportunity to make money in the consumer space in this day and age.
I actually feel like it's almost trending right now to be, from like a macro point of view, and as somebody who has just really been focused on trend setting and capitalizing on that, I feel like this is a perfect time for us to be taking over. And also not just women acquiring a lot of the money, the baby boomer generation, right? Women are predominantly thriving within that area as well. So you mentioned something very interesting. And for listeners who are hearing this and saying, maybe I'm a potential candidate, you really do build your business and your mission based on women-led brands who are identified as inspirational and exceptional. How do you know who the right candidates are to change the game that you invest in?
Yes, certainly. We have a very thorough due diligence process, but I would say from a broad perspective, at least 85% of this fund will be reserved for consumer products. The other bit is kind of open, so you could be a bit outside of thesis, and if you're meeting some exceptional need out there, we're interested. We're looking for products that are already, or companies that are already generating revenue. We're not helping build it from scratch. There are certainly investors that do that. We're coming in where you've really got that product market fit nailed down, and we know that you can use dollars to really accelerate your growth. So we're not, coming in as a Band-Aid or helping build it from scratch, but rather we're helping to speed up your growth. So you have to be solving a problem or addressing an industry that has room to grow, whether that's 5x, 10x, or something like that to deliver the returns we need. So we're looking for scalable businesses that are addressing a real need in the market.
Do you ever find a cohesive lineage between all the female founders, like on a personal level?
Yes. And this is where it gets a little dicey to say this, but I'll just come out and say it. I think, especially when you're an investor, right? My job is mostly about one, risk identification and risk mitigation. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Certainly we can analyze all the spreadsheets and we do all that, we'll look at all the data, but at the end of the day, I'm investing in the person as much as the business. And so one question I've asked myself over and over is, how do I mitigate that risk? How do I get to know the character of someone? Because really that's the wild card in these investments, right? Because sure, there are things that are black and white, legal, not legal, ethical, non-ethical, but a lot of things happen in that gray space. And so I want to invest in women who are of high character, that are of high integrity, that are going to do the right thing for the good of everyone, not just their self-interest. And so, Ashley, after doing this for coming up on, call it 8 to 10 years of angel investing and now having a fund, I think that's the common denominator in our most successful outcomes. We are dealing with women of high character. So as cheesy and cliche as it sounds, character counts. Certainly competence matters as well, but you can find competent people all around, but if they lack character, they're not going to drive to the best outcome for all involved. So that's really important to us at Curate, is working with people that we like and respect because of the integrity and high values and high standards that they hold themselves to.
Absolutely. And I would assume that you not only look internally to self and team to amplify that, because your energy is going to then attract and align those connections. You are somebody who is so busy, so service driven. You have a heart of gold and you're also a mom. How are you able to manage that all on like a personal level?
That's very kind of you to say all that. I don't know some days that I am managing it, but, I think I'll share one example or one kind of guiding principle that I actually just shared with my team this week, because it keeps turning over and over in my mind these days. And there's a book called The Gap and the Gain. It's one of my favorite business books. And it tells the story about the British rowing team, I believe the men's British rowing team, that, it seemed like they were just really bad, like had not qualified for the Olympics or hadn't won any medals since like the early 1900s. And they decided they wanted to go for gold in, I think, the Sydney Olympics in 2000. And so what they did, they came together as a team and they created a filtering question for themselves. And then they filtered every decision through that question. And for them, that question was, will this make the boat go faster? And if the answer was yes, then they did it. If the answer was no, then they didn't do it. So for instance, if an individual maybe wanted to eat a donut in the morning, is this going to make the boat go faster? No. If they wanted to stay out late and party the night before, is this going to make the boat go faster? No. Should they do extra reps of that shoulder workout or whatever? Is this going to make the boat go faster? Yes. And so I think having those filtering criteria at a very high level really ensures that you stay on track. We also have a little mantra that we're embracing this year: simplify to amplify. And I think too many times we try to be too many things to too many people, right? You can't do it all at the same time. And I think in this stage of life, going back to the motherhood and balance part of this, there are certain things that just don't fit. My priorities are building my business and obviously, building up my children, caring for them, nurturing them, developing them. And so if something doesn't fit in those two priorities, it's probably a no for right now. There was a season of life where I went to every charity gala, every networking event, every dinner I got invited to. These days, I'm very picky about that. I don't do a lot of evening things because that's not conducive to being with the kids. I don't take on a lot of optional kind of socializing events because that's not really helping grow my business or nurture my family. And so I think we, especially as women, with kind of all we have on our plate, the mental load of it all, we have to have those overarching values or even filtering criteria to help us run everything through that. Because I know, at least me, I struggle with looking back. I can look back at this week or last year. It's so easy to let the whole, plot disappear because you're so busy reacting to everyone else and their needs and the demands they put on you, that at the end of the day, you haven't moved your own ball forward, so to speak. You haven't advanced your own goals. And so if we, get at peace with having to say no to some other people and some other opportunities, say no to the good so you can make room to the great, I think that'll ultimately serve all of us better.
And release the guilt associated with it as well.
Yes.
Right? It was a big for me was when it came to my boundaries, I would say no and then still hold guilt within me. And that energy did not serve me at all. Speaking
Absolutely.
of going back, I would love to know from you, if you could go back and talk to Carrie 10 years ago, what would you say to her?
Oh, great question. I think to trust yourself, right? To know your value and to trust that. Don't try to convince anyone of your value, whether that's professional, personal, whatever. I think it took me a long time to live that way, right? Like I'm almost 50 now, and not quite. I shouldn't round up quite yet, but we're getting there. And it's actually really freeing though, because you don't care as much about external forces and you're more comfortable in your own skin and just more comfortable with who you are. And, own your strengths. Don't try to fix everything or be everything to everyone, but really know who you are, what you're good at and what you're not. And I think that's really, as I look back, something that I can see more clearly now that I couldn't see at the time. I think that we get so kind of lost in the day-to-day minutia. I remember in the corporate world, you would have your performance reviews with your boss, and your boss would say, well, you're not good at this, you're not good at that, why don't you improve on this? You're like, okay, I got to improve on. Really, I don't espouse that sort of thinking anymore. I think another powerful book that I love in the business world is just strengths-based leadership. And I think if we focus more on what we're good at and as much as possible offload what we're not good at, I mean, it's going to be better outcomes for all of us, right? Like, we don't have to be good at everything. You don't have to have it figured out. You can build up a team around you. You can, outsource things that you're not good at. Don't spend so much time trying to kill yourself being good at everything. Like, okay, cool. Like, that's not a strength of mine. Who can I find? Another book by the same people that wrote The Gap and the Gain is their book, Who Not How. Like, if you're struggling with someone, or struggling with something, you don't have to figure out how to do it. Find someone else who really thrives at that and let them do it for you, right? Like, there's so much more potential when we work together and we're all focused on our, individual strengths, and then we can come together and collaborate in a meaningful way.
Do you have anything in like your own personal toolbox that helps you stay grounded? Because as you know, in entrepreneurial world, we almost have to like stack our morning promises and then come into like a battlefield where it's a roller coaster of up and down, especially with you, because you're on the phone with all of your founders and entrepreneurs, and sometimes they're delivering goods, sometimes they're helping you get to navigate the war field. So what is it that you do? Maybe countdown, Mel Robbins, the 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah.
Anything to keep you kind of grounded throughout the day?
I think a few things for me are non-negotiables, and that's moving my body, doing some form of exercise every day. That's paying attention to what I put in my body, food, supplements, all that. And then sleep. Like, I've got to have sleep. I'm not good if I don't get sleep. And so, then you've got to kind of put those constraints on your day and factor everything else in there, right? Like,
Mhm.
I really don't miss a day of going to the gym. It may just be walking one day, it may be weights, it may be whatever, but you've got to do something and take care of yourself first. And don't feel selfish for doing that, because ultimately you're going to perform better at all of your other duties when you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, I mean, it sounds trite but it's taken me a lot of time to get there. Like, it just is. I'm not going to feel bad for saying, no, I can't meet then. That's what I'm working. I mean, I don't tell them necessarily that that's what I'm working out, but like, you've got to reserve that time yourself to fill your own self up and meet your own needs before you have anything to give to those around you.
Absolutely. If you're having a really chaotic day and you sit down and you close your eyes and you come internally and you think of a really pivotal moment in your entrepreneurial journey so far that really significantly contributed to your joy or your success or your growth, can you tell me what
Mhm.
that moment is?
Hmm. Yeah, great question. I'll first say, generally speaking, I mean, the women that I've gotten to connect with, um, that is just so satisfying, right? I mean, some of the women that we've invested in have actually become dear personal friends, trusted advisors. They're the people that I, text or call when things are rough, personally or business wise. Like, so really, I'm so super grateful for that network of women around me. On a more specific level, I think sometimes, we're in such a virtual world these days, and we're so locked in our day to day that sometimes we don't step back and see how far we've come. And one of those instances took place a few years ago now, where we held an in-person celebration right after we closed our first fund. For our investors and founders and whatnot, and seeing the brand that I had created and built come to life in a real physical way, like, moved me to tears, right? Because sure, we see social media, we see stuff on our computer screen, but seeing like 100 people come together in this venue that was all beautifully decked out and curate brands and colors and Portco products, it was just a very moving moment. I didn't expect to cry, but I did. I had hired a lady who's a friend here locally, but she's this amazing event designer and actually doesn't even do it full-time professionally, really just does it for friends and family. But I twisted her arm and I said, look, I won't micromanage you. I'll give you a budget. You run with it. Here's my brand, colors, logos, all that. And I truly did not micromanage. In fact, I didn't manage that process at all. I said, here, Shada, it's all yours. Surprise me. And so when I walked into the venue on the day of the event, I did not have any preview. I did not have any sense of what to expect. And the tears just started flowing because it was just such a meaningful moment to me to see that come to life. And gosh, that was 2 years ago. So now I need to do another event soon to have that in-person feeling again. But yeah, I think, we've got to step back and acknowledge the successes and wins that we have, because we certainly are hit with the challenges and setbacks and failures on a day-to-day basis, the frustrations of being an entrepreneur. It is hard. And so, yeah, to create those moments where you are kind of forced to step back and look at these successes is so very important for us all.
You will have a giant party after you land that 100 million.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
That's
From your lips.
Before we get to the last question here and wrap it up, is there any big misconception when it comes to venture capitalism or venture capital when it comes to women-led businesses that you would like to just squash? Because I hear a lot of chatter when you get to a certain area within your business and you're starting to look towards venture capital, and there's many misconceptions. Is there one that you would like to address and dissipate here in this conversation?
Yeah, I'll preface this by saying, my perspective is as an outsider to venture capital. I guess technically I've been in this world 5 or so years, investing for 10 or so. But when I came into this industry, I was totally kind of blown away by some of the conventional wisdom. Certainly, some of it's there for good reason, and we espouse that where needed. But I think being an outsider can be a strategic advantage. You don't have all the ingrained, well, this is the way it's always been done, and you just have to do it that way. And really, that's what I would convey to founders as well. I'm more like a founder than like a big corporate VC, right? Like, I've started my business myself. I've had to raise money for it. I've been in your shoes as a founder more than I've been in some, corporate investor shoes. And so really, that's what I would tell people. Don't try to conform just because you think this is what, a VC backed founder is supposed to look like or sound like, and this is the prescribed route. It doesn't have to look that way. In fact, this is the most anti-VC thing to say, but I tell people, don't raise money. Don't raise venture money. As long as you can, put it off. Like, chart your own course. I think that's what so many of us really want. We want to control our own destiny. And sometimes taking on money from investors does not lead to that outcome. So I think it really behooves all of us to consider the cost before we go down a certain road. What do I mean by that? Getting on the VC treadmill comes with rules and expectations, both spoken and unspoken. And so you may think that you want investor money, but be sure to count those costs before you do. And if you do go down that route, do not feel like you have to conform and for your deck to look like every other, pitch deck, for you to sound and have all the same answers as everyone else. Like, truly, it is your unique perspective and your unique voice that's going to make a difference in the world. And so if some investors don't get it, write them off. I mean, certainly if they have useful feedback, sure, take that into account, but you will find your people, and your people may not be the traditional VC investors. They may be really loyal customers who want to, and also invest in your business. They may be, it may just take some digging to find. But if you're really putting out that unique perspective, good energy, you will align with the right people at the right time. I really believe that, and that's not just big, lofty words that I'm using. I live that out. So a little peek behind the curtains. For our first fund, we raised $15 million and our goal was 10 million. So if you just see the headline, you're like, oh, that must have been easy for her. She blew past her goal. Not the case. So I had 13 months to raise that amount of money. For the first 11 months, I raised 7 million. And you got to know, like, I'm type A, like, I always reach my goals, that sort of thing. And I'm literally, in tears those days going, oh my gosh, we're not going to meet our goal. This is horrible. But in the last 60 days, we raised $8 million. And so what turned the tide there? Well, I think I wasted a lot of time early on trying to convince people that I thought were going to invest why they should invest. They didn't get it. They're like, oh, Carrie, why are you focusing on women? Like, oh, have you gone off the deep end? Are you some feminist now or whatever? Like, I had all sorts of derogatory questions hurled my way, but I kept trying to convince them of my worth and why this made good business sense. Really, I should have pivoted a lot earlier on, because what really happened is once I started talking to a different demographic, frankly, largely women, and influencers. And, once I shifted my focus, the right people got the value proposition. It was not a hard sell. They got it right away. They're like, oh yes, I love your mission. Or, oh yes, I already use that company's products. I want to invest in you so I can be an investor in that company. Like, the right people will find you at the right time. So, when it comes to fundraising, so 3 last pieces of advice on fundraising based on the, kind of hellacious experience I had was, get used to hearing no. You're going to hear no, and that's okay. I heard no more than I ever had in my life. Number 2, get to know faster. Don't let them prolong that no, right? Like, if they're not into you, they're not into you. Like, move on, right? Like, don't draw it out. The chances of you changing someone's mind is pretty small. Go and find, so then the third piece would be to find your people, right? Find your people where the yes is easy, and you'll reach your goals a lot sooner, I think. So get used to your no, get to know faster, and then find your people where the yes is easy.
Oh my goodness. So many ahas in there. I also really heard, like, give yourself permission to step in your uniqueness. And then when into that authentic energy, that's when people start to surround you, right? Which
absolutely.
Isn't that fun?
We can be unique, and that's where the value comes, right? Like, if we needed everyone to sound and look the same, then it'd be a very homogenous world. But the beauty is in the differences. And as we bring those to the table, we're all going to ultimately drive to better outcomes for one another and ourselves.
That ties in really perfectly into our last and signature question for She Wears the Pants. looking back on your journey of wearing the pants, what message do you want to relay for future generations of women in business?
Well, great question. And I think it's just that's topic we just hit on. Be yourself.
Yes.
Embrace your uniqueness because that's really where your power is. I remember back in my early corporate days, keep in mind this was 2 decades plus ago as a young engineer in the oil and gas industry. As you can imagine, there weren't many that looked like me. And I did the thing where I tried to conform. In those days, it was like, navy, black or brown or gray business suits, very buttoned up, very serious. And, I tried to have the same mannerisms as all the other, petroleum engineers and geologists around the table. And at some point I kind of woke up and I'm like, no, I like fun fashion. I like colorful things. I think about this, topic a little differently than you. I'm going to say what's on my mind. And really at that point is where, I started getting a bit more traction professionally when I wasn't blending in, but rather standing out.
Oh, what a beautiful thing to leave on, Carrie. You are exceptional. If there are people listening out there that want to help support you and all of these exceptional women-led businesses in gaining that 100 million, how can they find you and support you?
Oh, thank you so much for the question, Ashley. Just following on socials, I'm at Carrie C. Our company Instagram is at curate.capital, which is also our website. But if you'd like to learn more about investing, you can just go to our website and click on invest, and there's some basic information and just a small form there. If you're a founder building a business and you'd like to get in front of us, likewise on our website, there's a pitch page where you can give us a little bit of information about your company and we will be in touch.
Oh, Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today. You are truly exceptional, and every moment spent with you, I just feel so filled to the rim.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I can't wait to see you in person soon.
Agreed.
This was She Wears the Pants, where women rise into what they're meant to hold. If this episode moved you, changed you, or challenged you, send it to a woman you want to see rise. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready for deeper strategy, identity expansion, and high-level support, you can find me on Instagram at Ashley Deland. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building intentionally, and becoming the woman your calling requires.